In the world of trading, we are often told that in order to make money, we must become masters of the market and we must memorize all of these chart patterns and indicators. But what if I told you that trading does not need to be that complicated? And there are much simpler ways that we can generate returns selling options than what you typically see on, your average Reddit subforum. Today, I'm going to show you a strategy that is really simple, but that doesn't matter because it really works. And that's what actually matters in the end of the day. This strategy I'm talking about is called the weekend strategy. And the idea is really simple. Over the weekend, stock markets are closed. And that means that if something happens on, let's say, a Saturday, any stock position that you're in, you need to hold until Monday and then exit the position or hedge. That means that anything that happens over the weekend, you can't react to right away. And that creates uncertainty and risk for traders. So what do people do? They hedge their positions going into the weekend to remove that risk from their books. They don't want to be holding that risk that, one tweak can send the market into a spiral. So they buy options to hedge away that risk. And that creates an opportunity for option sellers. We can be the ones selling those options. And just like in many of the other situations, we find that the risk that people perceive when they are buying these options is greater than the risk that actually materializes. What does this mean for option sellers? It means that we are able to make money selling these options to people over a long period of time. Yes, there will be weeks where we take hits, but the risk premium and the option premium that we collect is on average outweighing the losses we incur when there is big movement after the weekend. Now, for Predicting Alpha members, I've put together this huge document that explains everything about the strategy. It's included in the free trial that you can just sign up for in the link below. But I want to show you a few things from it now to help you really understand this strategy, and then we'll talk about how to execute it. All right, so taking a look at the document here, the first thing that I want to show you is this backtest. All right, so strategy performance, right? This is basically looking at a 4-year window on the S&P, assuming $1,000 notional, entering 5 minutes before close on the Friday, and exiting 5 minutes after the open. If the P&L of this was positive, then what we're basically saying is that selling options has made money. And if the P&L was negative, then we'd be saying buying options has made money. Looking at this P&L, it is very obvious that selling options has generated pretty phenomenal returns over the last 4 years, with the last 2 years being extremely good in particular. But as you can see, this is not a perfect straight line up and to the right. We do have periods where there are some pretty significant drawdowns. And that is to be expected, right? For example, if we zoom in here and we look at the COVID times, right, just after 2020 started, we see that this test actually started immediately with a drawdown. But that's okay because times like that create this risk premium. It's the fact that the risk actually does exist that we are able to generate this return by selling options over the weekend. So what exactly is the trade for this strategy? The trade for this strategy is that on Friday at market close, we sell an at-the-money straddle on ETFs that have a Monday expiration. We hold the position over the weekend, and then Monday morning, we exit those trades. If the move that happens in these tickers is less than what was implied to happen over the weekend, we are going to be able to generate a positive return by doing this trade. Now, as for the tickers we start with, you could just do this on the S&P, for example, but there is benefit to some diversification. For example, if you wanted to include GLD or QQQ, IWM, DIA, such as if you wanted to include QQQ, IWM, USO, any of these in your portfolio for this strategy as well, these do make sense and they have that Monday expiration available. And the main reason we want to be adding this diversification is because, as you will see here, each of the tickers that we would look at including has a slightly different return profile. And even though they follow something similar, it's important to remember on a week-to-week basis, they do have different results. All of them have that positive expectancy over the long run, but by having them on each week together, the path dependency that each one takes weekend to weekend kind of neutralizes each other and allows us to extract the average risk premium from across the trades. And that's the main reason why I do suggest some form of diversification when looking at this strategy. You don't want to be all in on just SPY. You can start with that, but at some point you want to be adding on a couple more trades. Now, one last piece of data that I want to show you is this. This is the distribution of what the returns look like. And this is very typical of what a short volatility strategy should be delivering to us. What we can see here from our P&L is that The highest frequency is a small positive return. And then we have a fatter left tail than right tail, which means that most of the time we generate a small profit. And then once in a while, we're going to take a big loss. And this is the nature of short volatility. It's very similar to how, let's say, insurance works, where most of the time you harvest a small premium. Once in a while, someone crashes their car and hey, guess what? You got to fix their car. Right? This is a very similar thing. Most of the time we make a small return. Once in a while, the stock moves big. And that reason that people are buying insurance from us or a hedge from us, it materializes and we have to cover that loss. And that gives us this type of result right here in the long run, right? Pretty awesome. Now, there's one last thing that I want to share with you about this strategy, which is, hey, Sean, what if there's a massive move? I don't necessarily like the idea of holding this large tail risk for my portfolio. Well, in that case, guess what? It's actually okay to go out and buy your own hedge. Let's say instead of doing a short straddle, you wanted to do a iron butterfly, which is where you sell the straddle, but then you go out and you're buying wings. This is actually a fine idea and actually something that I implement for myself, right? When most people structure an iron butterfly, what they're thinking is, oh, I want to have like a 1-to-1 risk reward or like a 1-to-2 risk reward. This is not the way to be thinking about things. The wings are there for one reason only, to prevent disaster. Always remember this. The straddle price is the implied move over that time period. We need to be selling that or as close to that as possible in order for us to realize our expected value, for us to make a return. So when we go out and we buy wings, my suggestion is that you want to be buying these wings pretty far out and still holding the majority of the risk that comes with the straddle. You're simply trying to stop those 10x losers from happening. You're still maybe holding a 5x loser if the S&P moves like 3%, but you will have a capped downside in the worst of worst case scenarios that allows you to stay in the game when these large risks do materialize, because they will materialize eventually. And so you want to be having something in place to control some risk, to some degree. But always remember this, the wings are not to give you a good risk reward. They are there to prevent worst case scenarios. So usually what I'm doing is I'm selling an at the money straddle and then buying my wings around maybe delta 5. The wings are usually costing me like maybe 5% of the premium that I collect, which totally works out for me. That's a fine range, I think, to be in. I'm still holding a healthy amount of risk that is worth someone paying for protection for. That's the way you can kind of logically think about it. And then I'm diversifying across a few of the ETFs that have Monday expiration as a way to just reduce my path dependency of what happens to the S&P in a couple day period. All right, everyone. So that's the basics of running this strategy. Obviously, there's a lot more detail in the PDF that I provide as a part of the free trial for Predicting Alpha. So remember, if you're interested in boring option selling strategies that just make money, if you're done with the rat race of following what some random guy on Reddit said, please sign up for a free trial. Come join us and see what we've got going on. We've been in business for 5 years. We've helped some traders create amazing portfolios. There's only 1,000 spots and one of them could be yours. All right, everyone, take care and we'll talk soon.